Head to Whole Foods Market to jumpstart your January during our New Year boosting event with savings on feel-good favorites store-wide. Save on organic picks, wellness staples, and more all month long.
Ampire. Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone, hi everyone, hi everyone, hi everyone. Happy Thursday to you. No Callow today. We're going to do a couple of great interviews. My weekly visit with John Keim, which we'll get to in a moment, ESPN Commanders insider, John Keim report host. And then my old buddy from ESPN, Kevin Neghandi, just got back from the national championship. And of course, P1 Eagles guy from Greater Philadelphia. And in the past, I've had him on the show a lot. I didn't actually have him on this year. But he's gracious enough to give us some time today to give us his thoughts as Washington takes on Philadelphia this weekend. And then later in the show, I want to play for you a clip from Terry McLaurin's press conference that I think literally encapsulates everything about this team, why they're here, and why it's not an accident that they're here. But we'll get around to that in a little bit. Let's start with my weekly visit with John Keim. Time now for our weekly visit with John Keim of ESPN, the John Keim Report. We've done this for a number of years. We've covered the team in a variety, in my case, a variety of capacities over the years. And this is an unusual one because it has not happened since, you started covering, or since I was a professional broadcaster, them playing in an NFC Championship game. So I know everybody wants to hear about the team, and I want to talk about that. But just for a moment, what's the week been like? You've waited a long time to cover a team that did something like this.
Yeah. There's a couple things. One, first of all, it's exhausting, but that's okay. Like you put that aside because what do you want to do as a reporter who covers an NFL team? You want to cover moments like this. This is a tremendous story. So it's been, I think for anybody involved with this franchise, whether it's inside the franchise or covering the franchise, I don't see how you can say anything other than it's been a hell of a ride. Because as a reporter, first of all, you know these guys, you feel their excitement, you feel their energy, you like a lot of these guys, so it's not like you're some robot walking around thinking, I will write story, right? It's like you're a human. And so you understand, you know what I mean? It's okay to admit, it doesn't change my reporting, but you can allow yourself to say, this is really a cool thing. And that's kind of where, and because I've covered it so long that it doesn't affect my reporting as far as I'm not going to be a homer. I'm going to do what I've always done. But this is a cool story. So it's enjoyable. It is exhausting beyond belief because, this, people come, radio stations are coming out of woodwork to talk to us this week. And it's amazing. And listen, man, I was on with the BBC today. That was awesome. So, but I just think, Bram, it's when people always think, the media just wants all these negative stories because that's what sells. It sells that day. Negative stories don't sell for a month. It's like cotton candy. This is a meal. This sustains you. Because it's a good story. There are a lot of good stories to talk about. It's an easy team to deal with. So it's really, really been an enjoyable experience.
I thought there were two things that happened today in the press conferences, because I want to talk about the team now a little bit, that I thought really encapsulated what we've covered throughout all of this. But the outside world just doesn't know about them, because they weren't expected to do very much for good reason. They weren't expected to do very much. Right. And, I'm not saying they were overlooked. They weren't. This is a completely new team with a new coach and a new GM and a rookie quarterback. Most of those teams don't go anywhere. And plus this team has no record of winning in recent years. So I get why people didn't really think much of them, and they weren't following like we were. But there was one thing that Dan Quinn said today, because I felt like for the last 5-6 weeks, I don't know why people at this point are dismissive of what they can accomplish, because now you're just not paying attention to it. Because I get it early in the year, but he said in his press conference, he finally kind of let up. He said it was after week 1 when people were all of the sudden saying to him, you know what, you'll get him next time. That was a tough draw. And he used a curse word to be no, actually, we're going to be better now. And I'll tell you what, they haven't played really a game like that since, and so it's maybe the Baltimore game, the score doesn't look it, but like that's really it. And it was very revealing for him to finally say for once, we did hear some things you said about us early, and we had the conviction to change everybody's mind. How long it took to get around to that.
And I'll be honest, there's two things. One, the Baltimore game wasn't close statistically, but I think it's the mindset that kept it close, right? And in other words, like, they are a tough team, and they found a way to keep it close despite being outplayed, right? So I think that was but that was, to me, also the feeling of who they are. And, you still find a way to make it close, even though it shouldn't have been. But I also like Bram after the first game, and even after the second game, I liked the way the approach was. There's two things. Like Joe Witt after the first game, we talked to him every Thursday. And somebody asked him, like, oh, well, it's your first game, and was this kind of to be expected? He's like, no, I don't care. You only get 17 of these. You can't say it's because it's week one. Like, the expectations and the standards had clearly been raised. And I think, and Dan Quinn after the first game was like, we're going to get better. After week two, they beat the Giants in a field goal, but he's like, that's not good enough the way they played. They have to finish better. If you wanted, just winning wasn't good enough. You had to play better. So I think that there were, again, the establishment of standards. And it's easy to say, like, every coach wants to have them, but as player after player today said, Terry McLaurin's like, you can have all these slogans, but if you don't live it, they don't matter.
Yeah.
And I would say this: we've heard the slogans before, they didn't live it, and this team lives it.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned McLaurin, because that's the other thing I heard today, where if there's anybody outside who isn't following it every week like we are, wants to know what this team is about, go listen to what he said in the middle of his press conference today, explaining what this team is about, when it started, and why it's going this way, and you'll get it really fast.
Right.
He got asked a question. It took him 3.5 minutes to answer it.
Yeah.
And it was literally the list of the reasons why this team is where it is, and you shouldn't be surprised by any of it.
Right. And and it's funny because, again, when you're around it, and I always go back in the beginning, in the spring, in the summer, you could feel a different level of energy and a different level of bonding. But I remember I even told one of the assistant coaches after the game last week, I'm like, you felt this, like, I kept saying, like, oh, it's too bad they're not further along in their program, because those are the kind of teams that do special things. And it's like, it just felt like, seriously, like, I felt like it's like, oh, the timing is off on how close they are, because they're just not there with the roster or whatever. Well, it turns out the other stuff matters, and it turns out that Jaden Daniels can compensate for other things that you may not have. And I think that's where, so, like, there are a lot of things that were there. It's just that you weren't sure what they meant, and it's still surprising where they are. But, like, yeah, the outside world wasn't going to feel that.
No.
And the narratives around teams are typically it typically takes a long time for the narrative to catch up. I mean, shoot, before the season, there were people who thought Dan Quinn would get fired. It would be a candidate to maybe not make it to a second year, which was absolutely ridiculous. But those were opinions that were based on the past here. And I'm like, the narrative had not caught up yet. At that point, I didn't think that I'm not going to say I didn't think I thought they'd be this good. I thought they'd, you kept saying like 7 wins, but but that's just the base. There's so much about this team we didn't know, including Daniels, including how Kingsbury would call the offense. And it turns out it was really good. So
yeah,
here we are.
And for me, like, you made fun of me earlier, but I called this early. I looked at them and I'm watching this and I'm going, this is really different, like really, really different. And I was screaming and yelling, do something at the trade deadline. Like, they have a special team. They have an opportunity here. It was week 4 that I started to look at them and went, I don't know. Like, after they beat Cincinnati on Monday night and had their first real high profile game and did it. And of course the outside world looked at it as a one-off. Like, they didn't think anything of it. When they turned around on a short week and boat raced a competitive team on their field without ever coming home, I went, uh-oh, like, this is different. And I'm not surprised that nobody around the NFL still believed it. But that's where it was for me. It was that early that I looked at it and I went, I don't know if this has staying power, but I've never seen a team that wears this uniform short of a year or two with Joe Gibbs that has this kind of fortitude and this kind of ability. And it really stood out to me.
You know, it's funny because somebody reminded me in one of my, I think on YouTube, on one of the shows that, like, you know, you told us after, I think it was a Cincinnati game or the Arizona game, like, enjoy this because there's, like, this kid is special, right? And you just knew with him it was. If the team, you still, like, the defense needed to get better. And, you know, even with the Marshawn Lattimore trade, that was as much for the next 2 years as it was this year. Like, I think if they had gone out and, like, so it definitely was a guy like, hey, you can upgrade. It can help you now, you hope. And I still think he can because, he did last week. But it was also a move designed to get a guy for the future as well. So it was a good move for that reason because it helped you now and helped you then. And it was something they desperately needed right now. Because if they don't get, at first of all, here's the other thing, like, if they hadn't made that trade, they still might be in the same spot because it's not like played all year at a high level for them, right? He's been hurt more than he's played. But I think there was the players. It's funny though, Bram, because like I think the rest of the building, like even the front office, the other coaches, like I think they knew that they still needed work on this roster. But the players took it as the sign of like, hey, they believe in us because this is what they did for us. And I think belief here has been a big thing for them, right? Yeah. But you're right. Like you especially go back and look now, and I agree with you. Like that Cincinnati, Arizona, that tandem of wins right there was as impressive as we've seen. And like people point, wow, how good was their team? Like Cincinnati was a desperate 0-2 team playing at home on Monday night. A rookie quarterback that, you still weren't sure, like, where's he going to go or how good he's going to be good, but when. That was not, they're 0-3, the Bengals after the game. But that was a desperate team playing at home on Monday. That's not an easy game to go play. And then the throws he made, it wasn't just that that he had a good game. It's like the high-level difficulty of some of those throws was like, holy bleep. And then to cap it off with a huge win, just blowing them out in Arizona, that's when it's like, yeah, all right, now you buckle up. But I still was like, for this kind, like that's for a playoff to get to the playoffs. To make this run, it's like then you saw Bram, the capper was end of the year. You start winning all these close games, and we've talked about that. And I think I still, it's amazing because like when we're up in Detroit, all you hear is like, well, they're not going to beat the Lions because this is their year. Well, I've been on Philadelphia radio, and they do not think that Washington can win. It's just, I'm done putting a limit on what this team can do. If they win the Super Bowl, there is zero surprise by me.
Yeah,
because there's so much fortitude. I'm sorry, one last thing on those close wins, and then going on the road 3 straight weeks, 2 in the playoffs, and winning games like that says a lot about your roster. It's Jaden Daniels. But it's not just Jaden Daniels.
No, it's not. And here's the other part of it. And this is the other thing. And this is where I know, again, people look at them and they just think it's a good story and they're not paying attention. I think the secret's out now. But here's the part, again, that you wouldn't know unless you were paying attention the whole time, which nobody outside of our area was.
No.
Their defense the last 2 weeks outcoached 2 of the best offenses in the NFL. That's why they won those 2 games. Yeah. Jaden Daniels makes these amazing plays. This is a team win. If anyone thinks it's just him, he's been remarkable. And I've been yelling he might be the MVP of the league, and he's just he's been tremendous. But the last 2 weeks, both times, I get the opportunity to talk to Quinn on the side before the broadcast. He will reveal to me, for the purpose of me doing my job, what they are thinking about when they go in, especially against those offenses. And in both cases, he laid out the things that they were going to attempt to do, knowing full well that they're not going to stop these teams. They're too good, especially the last one they just played. And you know what? They were right. like their defense is peaking to whatever degree that they can peak right now. Like, I don't pretend that they have, Nick Bosa on their team or Micah Parsons, but the back end of their defense has become extremely physical, extremely dangerous. And then the linebackers we've already known about. John Allen's getting his sea legs back under him again. Yeah. Like, I don't think this is so underrated what's going on. Their defense is playing their best now, and people aren't looking at like that they played great outside of the turnovers because of the points they gave up. Look who they played and where they played them. The defense has come. This is why I'm even more bullish. The defense has come around in a way I didn't expect.
Well, I think the big thing there last week were the turnovers, and that's something they weren't getting in the regular season. There was 17 in the regular season, and that we know, like the phrase "ball is life, ball is life." That's what they repeat that phrase all the time. Well, they didn't have enough life because they only took it away 17 times. But that's been a big key in the postseason. Now, in Tampa, did a really good job against an offense that had its way with them in the first meeting. But the turnover by Bobby Wagner recovering that fumble was huge. And then while Detroit had over 500 yards of offense, the turnovers, like those are forced. Sanders still did a really good job in a way, but one off a goofy, let's get too cute play call.
Yeah.
But the other one just right before half, like that takes away points, but it was also just a really, really well played ball by Sanders. And then Quan Martin with the pick six, and so with the one thing, they're not going to line up and just shut you down. Like they're not,
they're not that.
The 85 Bears. They're not. But what they do is a couple of things. I think it's a smart defense. I think the back, is exceptionally smart. I think, like Sanders still, and Lattimore is a very smart player. Chin, Quan Martin, Bobby Wagner. Like there are a lot of smart guys on defense that we can't always say it's been the case here. And I've covered some defenses that you would say the opposite about. And, but this team has it. But it's the physical play too. Because if they, Philadelphia doesn't turn the ball over much, but if they can force them, that's how they can win.
Yeah.
And, it's just like the other thing, I think they understand too that they don't have to be perfect. Jaden Daniels is really good and that offense is really good. They don't have to be perfect. I think that helps. You don't have to play tight. If you give up a drive, like it's okay, go get them next time because this kid can go get some points. So I think that helps as well. But yeah, they're not a shutdown defense, or they haven't been, but they are playing better because you make plays. Like this is a playmaking league. Like look at that, Dorrance Armstrong strip sack may have been the biggest play in that first half. Because if you don't get that, you could be going down 14-3. It's a different game. But they're inside the 20. Like that was huge. But it was coverage got held them for long enough that Armstrong beat his guy and could get there. It was just that was a big play. There are a lot of them.
What's amazing too is like if you really go look at their defense, like if you really look at personnel wise now that Lattimore is here and looking like that he's got his sea legs under him a little bit, and hopefully past the hamstring stuff enough to be himself or a close version of it. Show me their weakness exactly on from a personnel standpoint. You may not think they're great in a lot of places, but show me where they're weak right now. And I'll wait for your answer on that one.
Yeah. Listen, we know that there's still need some upgrades at spot, but as far as a weak, I think, with John Allen coming back, you have better depth on that defensive line. I think that was a necessity at tackle because I think I like Johnny Newton's potential as the run stopper. He's not there yet. And I think that hurt them, but I think he's got a lot of ability, can rush past all that. But having Allen back really helps solidify that. Like you're right. Like if Lattimore is healthy, they're not weak at corner. Igbenogany has done well as the nickel corner.
Yes.
And, like the safeties have done a nice job. And, I think like Dante Fowler's been a good pass rusher. Now, even that second game against Philly, like there were times where if he gets upfield quick, he can help you set the edge. He's not a big physical guy, but, Dorrance Armstrong has been solid. Cleveland Farrell he can set an edge. He's, you could use another strong end, but it's not. I don't feel like they have bad ends either. So I don't think they have a. I don't. You look at their starting lineup. Like, who's the bad player in that lineup?
Correct.
And
All right.
again, that doesn't mean they're an all-star defense, but it does mean they have a lot of guys who can do things. And I think it's a smart physical defense. That's a good place to start.
The biggest concern for me is offensive line this weekend without Sam. They already Philadelphia. Milton Williams isn't getting enough credit. He's having a terrific year. Jalen Carter has had an all-pro year. He's outrageously good and has made his presence felt in both of the games that they faced. And he's an all-pro. He's an outstanding player. Without Cosme, this is where my concern is. Like, can they generate any kind of run game with their offensive line? Because I know they're not going to just throw the ball, 50 times. That's not who they are. And then secondarily, can they protect Jaden, or is he running for his life the whole game? That to me is the issue. So as you think about this midweek, what do you think they're going to do?
Yes, I saw. Trent Scott went in, and I thought he did a fine job replacing Cosme, especially considering he hadn't played there in 3 years. So where you miss Cosme is the size, but also like his ability to he's a good run blocker. His ability to pull, his ability to block in space on screen. That's a big deal. And then also he's battled Jalen Carter a few times already. And Carter is really good. And he's done well against Cosme. So that's a problem. So you could double down on him. You can have the oddest block down on him. But that's leaving now Allegretti and Coleman on the left side basically one-on-one. Now, unless you want to, they will chip. They'll do all that stuff. So, that's something you have to do because Carter can wreck the game against you. So you have to be aware of that. And then, you're going to have to do just some things to slow the rush or whatever. He hasn't been a dominant pass rusher. There's much working against the run, but, it's hard. It is really hard against him. And I just think you're going to have to be a little bit more creative with some of your run sets. At times they have been, because you can't let the instant penetration just blow it up. And that would be my concern.
Yeah, that's my concern too. All right. We're actually going to go be at an NFC Championship game. Boy, it's
How about that?
Wow, long time coming. And a rivalry game too. Amazing. It's the first time ever that these two have faced each other in this situation. So, the special season just gets more special by the minute. It's really just been a remarkable run. And I look forward to talking to you next week, and I hope it's to preview the Super Bowl with Washington in it.
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
Listen, man, I don't put anything past this team, and I think this team somehow just finds ways to do it.
I do too. All right, thank you, John. Talk to you.
Thanks, Bram.
You sign up for something, forget about it after the trial period ends, then you're charged month after month after month. The subscriptions are there, but you're not using them. In fact, I just learned that 85% of people have at least one paid subscription going unused each month. Thanks to Rocket Money, I can see all my subscriptions in one place and cancel the ones I'm not using anymore. And now I'm saving more money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/gameon today. That's rocketmoney.com/gameon. rocketmoney.com/gameon. Let me welcome in one of my favorite people from my days at ESPN, the wonderfully talented Kevin Neghandi, of course, the king of Philadelphia. It is nice to speak with you, Kevin. How are you?
Should I call you the king of the commanders?
It's fine.
Because your radio calls have been fantastic.
I appreciate that. Thank you. We hadn't done this year. To become a regular practice during Eagles Week, I'd have you on. Do you know how hard it was for me not to text you after Washington had 5 turnovers in a game and beat you guys anyway? Do you have any idea how hard it was for me to not text you after that?
First off, I was a little offended that I wasn't on this whole year because it was like, wait a second, your team is suddenly good and now you're just blowing off me in any type of conversation when you guys were horrible and had previous ownership and struggling to find a quarterback. Yeah, we'll call up Neghandi and we'll have a good banter back and forth. But, you know, I don't mind that. You could text me because, listen, I know the Commander fan base feels very confident, especially off of that win. But I will also say that Jalen Hurts didn't play the final three quarters, and with Kenny Pickett as the quarterback, if Devontae Smith makes that catch inside 2 minutes, the game's over. So, like, there are a lot of factors that weigh in while you guys say, hey, despite us having 5 turnovers, well, the other side of the argument can be, hey, we could, at the end of the game, if Devontae Smith makes that catch, say, hey, despite not having Jalen Hurts, we still beat you. So I think it plays both ways. That argument, you and I are objective people to a certain extent. I'm not sure how much it will be in this conversation, but I look at it from that perspective that you guys got the win because you needed to still have that comeback. You still needed that drive by, Jaden Daniels, who's spectacular. But in reality, it's not like, we had our full team there, and football is football, man. And I'm actually glad that I don't have to hear the narrative this week. It's hard to beat a team 3 times. So heading into this weekend, I think that you guys got something, we got something. We both feel pretty good about going into the game.
I think the Devontae Smith part of the argument of the last game, and then I'll let it go, is the most legitimate part of that I've heard from anybody who roots for the Eagles, because I'll just say this to you, and I can't wait to hear your answer. What position on defense does Jalen Hurts play? Because I don't remember ever seeing him out there playing defense for them.
That's fair, but C.J. Gardner-Johnson was thrown out of the game for no reason, where we were wondering, what, you're throwing him out for saying words when
he apologized, though.
Star safety?
He apologized afterwards, so he took the blame for that. So I don't know what he said, but he said something, that's for sure.
Clearly, but I'm giving you an example that not having one of our star safeties across the middle in a game like that, where Jaden's carving us up going down the field in that final drive, that plays a role too. Again, that's neither here nor there. C.J. Gardner-Johnson is going to be playing. Jalen Hurts is going to be playing. You guys are balling right now. I think it's going to be an incredible environment. I wish you luck going into South Philly. Any Commander fan, I wish them luck. I always tell people that if you want an enjoyable experience and you're the opposing team, just watch it at home. You won't, even if your team wins, you will not have an enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
Just because the environment is what it is. And that's why it's one of the best home field advantages in all of sports, because of that environment. There are some concerns that I have going into the game. And I mean, if we're going to talk ball a little bit, if you guys are in a 3rd and 5 to 3rd and 8 situation, I am scared to death, because 5 has made every single sound decision. He's a 35-year-old quarterback, old legs. He makes incredible decisions. He is so talented. He's not fazed by the moment. He wants to continue to attack, and the entire culture of that team has adopted that. And I thought this offseason, you guys made really smart decisions, adding veterans like Eckler and Wagner and Ertz, where they know how to win in these environments. They know what it's like to win big games. They are reliable when you need a big moment or a big play. And that builds that confidence for Jaden Daniels, who's going into this game riding really high. So I think those things concern me. The Eagles, listen, I think we both have this. The Eagles kicking game and the Commanders kicking game is a big storyline, because
100%.
This line started out at 4.5, right? It's now at 6.5, which I don't like. But we all know this isn't an NFC Conference Championship game. This is a divisional NFC East game. And those games are always tight. Those games always come down to the final 4 to 5 minutes of a game, and they could be coming down to, hey, did a kicker miss an extra point?
Yep.
Can a kicker make a 45-yard field goal? You guys got your own issues. We've got our own issues with that. So That concerns me going into a game like this.
Well, let me ask you this one, too, because I think there's two things with the game. Washington lost their best offensive lineman, which worst time possible, right, with Jalen Carter in that group. And so that's going to be problematic. My big question for that is, can Washington run the ball at all? And I really, outside of Jaden doing magic tricks, I don't really know. But on your side, Jalen Hurts got injured. We do not know the severity of it. And I think the game is, can he move laterally? Would they call zone reads with him? Is he going to run the ball? If he's not, and it's like clear as day that he's not a threat to run the ball, I think your offense is in trouble this weekend.
And that's a big concern, because the one thing that Jalen can do, we saw in that 44-yard run to start the game against the Rams, is that he can accelerate. He's got the power. If he can't move laterally, you're going to see a lot of confusion and holding on to the ball. He took a lot of sacks in that game against the Rams. I will say that the Packers game, I was more concerned about him than I was in the Rams game, because in the Rams game, with the snow and the elements, it's protecting the football. Don't give it up. While Matthew Stafford looked incredible with his arm, he still gave it up when he was sacked, right? He still fumbled the football, right? And that's a momentum changer. And we saw that play a huge role. So to me, he's going to take some sacks. You got to get A.J. Brown involved early. And you're right. Going into a game like this, we all know you're going to stack the box. You guys have had trouble stopping the run all season.
Yep.
Saquon's going to get his. It's just, if the Eagles were to be down early, let's just say 10-0, then you start to get a little worried, like you guys saw in Detroit. When you guys took that 10-point lead, you saw a quarterback just start to panic.
Yep.
You saw an offensive coordinator say, I've got to do more things and try too hard. When you get out of that, because Jahmyr Gibbs was running all over your defense. He was having his way. And when you put it in the hands of Goff to win the game, that can be trouble. And I don't think Philadelphia wants to put the ball in Jalen Hurts' hands to win the game.
No.
And that's a concern, how you guys start off. You guys also have Jonathan Allen. That plays a big role, too, on the push. For the Eagles' perspective, I'll say the end's got to keep Jaden Daniels in. And Nolan Smith is playing like a man possessed. He's been fantastic. Of course, Jalen Carter has been outstanding. Quinyon Mitchell's health concerns me, because De'Ami Brown's been phenomenal as that second option with Terry McLaurin. So there's a lot of things that we didn't see in that first game or that second game that we're going to see in the third game kind of show up. And the question will be, who kind of makes the big play here. And I think you guys are riding really high with number 5, and you should be.
Yeah, listen, you guys have best deal in sports and Zach Bond, too, this year. That beyond paid off this year. Milton Williams is underrated having the season.
Yes.
Maybe playing next to Jalen Carter helps, but that he is. So there's full respect to what the Philadelphia defense is, and their ranking is warranted for what they've done this year. I want to ask you a question about the coach. Where were you in the offseason on Nick Sirianni, and are you at all surprised in any way that this team has done what they did this year with him as the head coach again?
So I'm going to say that, listen, when management takes a week after the biggest collapse in Eagles history, and this is a year ago around this time, when management takes a week to decide his fate and then says, hey, we're bringing in our own coordinators, we're going to make the hire, you start to wonder, okay, what's the head coach there for as a CEO? What kind of decision is he going to make? And then you're like, okay, this guy's in charge of making, hey, 4th and 1, do we go for it? Hey, 4th and 2, do we go for it? Hey, do we take this penalty? Beginning of the season, there was some emotional immaturity, barking back to the Browns, to the Eagles fans after that Browns game, the way he attacked the second half of that Jacksonville game, where it was like, what are you doing? You're giving Jacksonville the opportunity to stay in this game. I was really, really annoyed, angry, because it was a Super Bowl roster. The Eagles have a Super Bowl roster. Howie Roseman's done an incredible job building his team. What has changed over the last, I would say, 10, 12 games is the head coach is now trusting the defense, because Vic Fangio has been unbelievable. And it's not so much the scheme. Fangio has unlocked the talent. And these guys all hit. They're always around the football. It's not one guy just making a play. They're in the right spots. They're making the right decisions. He's unlocked Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, guys who had incredible talent. Kobe Dean before he got hurt. Zach Vaughn, who was a special teams ace, and now he's first-team All-Pro. What he's done is he's unlocked the talent on the team and made them understand that you guys are a physical team. You're a team that's going to hit. So when he's done that, it has allowed the head coach, I think, to make better decisions instead of just, hey, I have no idea what my defense is going to do, so our offense has got to stay on the field. And instead, the head coach is now making decisions about field position. He's playing now chess instead of checkers. That's a huge deal when you talk about playoff decision making, where one decision and players all even out, where one decision could be the difference in a game, in the outcome, and it comes from the head coach. That has helped me feel more confident with him. So I will say that he has won me over because he has won, I think, the locker room. He's always had the players' ears. There is an emotional intelligence that we need to see, and maturity that we need to see in a game like this, because everybody's going to be riding high and everybody's going to be amped up. Where is Sirianni on being calm, aware, and understanding that to press the right buttons? He has showed that he can do that. So I feel better about it, and I think a big reason why is because now he trusts his defense. He didn't trust his defense the first month of the season.
All right, last thing, and real quick. As an Eagles fan, when you look at Jaden Daniels, what are you thinking for the present and the future of facing him?
I'm scared out of my mind. The reality is, I take the perspective of an Eagles fan, die hard, but at the same time, the reality of a guy that I saw at LSU because of my job at ESPN with college football and my passion for football in the NFL and covering the sport, that the kid is special, man. The kid understands. He's not playing like a rookie. There's nothing too big for him. And the tables have turned. It's quite amazing when you look at the Commanders' entire organization and you get new ownership, new stability. You add juice with a quarterback, and you guys have – Dan Quinn's a player's coach. They all play for him.
Yeah.
And he's done everything right of understanding the temperature of the team week after week after week. And they respond to playing for him, right? So it's scary. It's scary for I think anybody in the NFC East because, listen, you guys have experienced it. I think Commander fans know that over the years, you guys have seen the Giants get elevated over the last 25 years. It's just, hey, be good, but then sometimes shoot themselves. But they're still relevant in the conversation when these 12-win teams and seasons. And the Eagles have been the most consistent team in the NFC East over the last 25 years. And we haven't had anybody that has stayed up with us. And the Commanders, with a quarterback like that, dynamic, aware, and stability in an organization, it feels like, the NFC East glory days are coming back again.
Kevin, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on today. Good luck this weekend. I think you're going to need it more than I think everybody up there believes. But I appreciate you coming on.
I love this. So, Bram, I love this because literally I am measured the entire time. And every Commanders broadcast I've been on this week, you guys are riding high. Yeah. You guys, and we all know, and I'm not one of those people that says, it's us against the world. We all know America wants the Washington Commanders. They don't want to see the Eagles in New Orleans. And I actually love that. So I love your confidence. It actually makes me feel better. And I'm looking forward to Sunday.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Go Birds.
All right, welcome back. Just a couple of quick, and thanks to, of course, John Keim and Kevin Neghandi, one of my favorite personalities at ESPN. He is genuinely one of the best people you'll ever meet in this business, and I think he's extremely talented, and I love him when he comes on this show. Anyway, a couple quick thoughts on the game this weekend. there have been a couple of running themes, and I think it's worked to this team's advantage, and it's going to continue this weekend. No one thinks they're going to win outside of this area. They've had to deal with those types of expectations within their own locker room and their own building. And frankly, like, we've kind of gone through this throughout the entire year where there was a level of disbelief on my end too. And I think everybody's end here, I think all of us collectively, like fans of this team, even I'm optimistic and I'm around them a lot and I watch them practice every day and I talk to them and I felt their confidence. And I thought by the end of camp, I'm like, this team's going to be better than people think they're going to be. But I wouldn't have picked this, and I wouldn't have picked 12 wins, and I wouldn't have picked it as good as it was. And most rookie quarterbacks, frankly, don't look like that. Don't look that good. Aren't that good. And because of all those reasons, because it was baked in that they would be up and down, because there were so many changes, because it's the NFL, and it's just not easy, I couldn't have envisioned this. I thought they could be good. I thought they could be second place in the division. I thought they could sneak in as a wild card team and then see what happens from there and see what the matchup looks like. And maybe they win a game. So they're not that far away from what I hoped they could be. But it's been better than that and a lot better than that. And it's a credit to everybody in the organization for building something like that. And this is the perfect team that they're playing this weekend, because I just spent the morning on Philly Sports Radio with my buddy John Kincaid, the payback for him coming on our show. And he's asking me, and they're so dismissive of what happened a month ago that it was just almost lucky that it happened. And there's a million reasons why, or excuses why they didn't win the game. And, that was the 5 turnover game. And somehow Washington won anyway because of the way Jaden Daniels played and because of the way the team hung in there. And after that one, if you don't buy that they're capable of literally doing anything, I don't know what will convince you. And I guess 2 road wins with no turnovers and 1 punt doesn't convince you, or a game-winning drive in the fourth quarter, or boat racing the number 1 seed doesn't convince you, well, then nothing really will. And it's probably better off that way. And I thought Dan Quinn did something yesterday in his press conference leading up to it where he finally admitted something. Like they've kept their head down, that they've heard some of this. It was the first time I've heard them kind of acknowledge that. And here's what he said.
Internally, we've got a lot of expectations about how we can play and what we do, but we never, went too far outside of things. Did we feel dismissed or put off? Yeah, of course some. I think that happened in the opening game. I felt dismissive. Hey, man, hang in there. It's going to be a long time. I was like, hey, F you, that's not how it's going to go down. And I was upset, but it wasn't disrespect. It was dismissiveness. And I felt some kind of way, but it didn't motivate me more to say that's how they think of us. It wasn't disrespect. It was we're going to be a lot better than what we just showed today, and eventually we'll show that. So it's not a prove it to everybody else or underdog story. It's it's how we get down. This is not a 7-game series, and so we got to play our best on Sunday at 3:00, and that to me is the biggest factor.
So yeah, they hear it, they know it, but I believe they've internalized all of it, and I believe that they've kind of just let it simmer for everyone else to try to figure out why are they good. And the more I watch them, I've got all the reasons, and there's a lot of people to credit for it. But I thought Terry McLaurin did the best job I've heard, really, of anybody on the team encapsulate what's happening and why they are having the success that they had. This is a long soundbite, but it's worth it because I think McLaurin really, really explained from the inside, why is this team doing things no one believed that they were going to do?
DQ is first and foremost, he's a leader of men. Playing for a coach that allows you to be yourself within the culture is extremely empowering. I'm sure he's learned a lot about me. I've learned a lot about him, and I've learned a lot about this team and the culture that we've been building. And he's allowed us to drive this car this season in the eyes of how we want this Commanders team to look like. We have veterans and veteran coaches coming from all throughout the league to be on this team this year. And the first thing we really focused on was getting as close as we could, getting to know each other on a personal level, being able to depend on one another on and off the field. And when you have that type of trust within someone that you see on a daily basis, sometimes more than your family, it's really important when you go through the ups and downs of an NFL season. And, one of my favorite DQ quotes is, he hates the words being underdogs or, I think, Tampa, first time we played them, somebody made the comment like, oh, you guys will get them next year. You guys will get them the next time. And he's like, nah, screw that. Like, we're going to get them this time. And I love that demeanor because it's a no excuse mentality. And when he says this is just what we do, we're living that right now. Like, this is a huge game, biggest game that I know I played in my career. A lot of us have played in our careers. But in my emotions about this game is this is just what we do. This is what we've been doing all season. And so you don't have to get up and get emotionally hype or do anything different or extra this week because we've been preparing like a championship game each and every week of the season. The way we prepare is to play like we're playing in the Super Bowl. And I think that we're reaping the results of that, but also having other guys who have been in the league as long as Bobby has Zach have got Super Bowls. They have the type of experience that I don't have. And so I've learned a lot from them as leaders, as myself just being 6 years in the league of when to say the right things, when to kind of take a step back. And it's allowed me to become even more of a vocal leader this year, not only in my unit, but the group, our offensive group in the team. And so it feels great, honestly, knowing that all that weight doesn't fall on one person. I think that's one thing that's different this year, where all the leadership, all the playmaking, all the gotta-have-it situation moments don't fall on one person, one player, one coach. It's a collective unit that comes together who are very unselfish, that want to get the job done. And just being dog-ass competitors, man, I think that's something that I love about this culture. That's the first thing that DQ said when he got here. If you're a dog-ass competitor, this is the place for you. And I sat up in my seat and I smiled because that's what I've been itching for. And to be a part of an entire organization, top to bottom, from ownership down to the players, you can see why the culture has cultivated so quickly, because we've bought into what DQ is saying, and the players have taken ownership, not only coming together and galvanizing, but putting the work in on the field to make sure that we're backing up our words with our actions.
For me, it's been a blast doing all of these interviews around the country. Obviously, we're getting a tremendous amount of attention, and every time I get to tell their story, I just even repeating it, it's amazing, and when it gets away from the disbelief of what they're doing, because most people haven't caught up to it or haven't really seen them play, don't really know what's going on here. And I don't blame them. Like, when a team kind of comes out of nowhere, you don't expect the rest of the country and the rest of the fan bases to catch up and know. Like, they know what Buffalo is now. They know what Kansas City is now. They know what Baltimore is now. They know what Philadelphia is now. They know what Detroit is now. It took a couple of years, but they know what Detroit is now. We're a couple of years away from that happening here too. And maybe starting next year based on what Jaden has done. But when I retell the story, and I really appreciate the way McLaurin told it, I tell it using these adjectives. I haven't seen a quarterback with this level of poise. And frankly, I haven't seen a team operate with this level of poise, especially being new. Their preparation is second to none. They have foreshadowed everything that would happen in games the weeks leading up to it, which means if I know that, the communication internally in the building is even better. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody's pulling the rope the same way. Everybody's in belief. They're handling game situations better than anybody in the NFL this year. They're poised, they're calm, they're collected, and they're executing at an extraordinary high level. And they believe. They believe. And that goes a long way. The egos are checked at the side. The team is in it together. They don't care what you think. And they just keep doing it week after week after week after week. And I feel like they're going to do it again. And I don't know how, because I don't like this matchup at all. Like, I don't like watching Philadelphia's defense with Sam Cosmi out and a beat-up offensive line trying to figure out how are they going to operate. I think that's the game. Can they figure out how to operate with their offensive line in the condition it is against that front who doesn't typically have to blitz as much as most other teams because they're able to get pressure with their front? Can they actually figure out a way to get some sustained drives against them? That's the game to me. But I believe they will, because I just believe. Because of everything that they've said, that I've seen, I just believe it's going to happen. And that might be naive, and it might be the end of the line, and it might catch up to them, and Philadelphia might be able to say, see, we told you, we knew it. But we've come a long, long, long way here to finally have, quote unquote, learned our lesson. And I'm not sure we're about to. This could continue. Talk to you tomorrow. Bram Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.